and gentlemen, it's the Not Late SLIF Show with Murry Mercier. Today's guests include John Erickson from Erickson Senior Living, Vince Kadlubek from Meow Wolf, and Lynne Katzmann from Juniper Communities. And now, live from New Mexico, your host, Murry Mercier.
Hello, hello. How's everybody doing today? We are here for episode 2. That means episode 1 was a hit. I love it, and I'm not nervous. All right, let's go. I will tell you, though, that I used just about all the influence I had and all the equity I had to get these 3 guests here today. So if you need a favor, I'm probably not the person to ask for a little while. We've got a great show for you tonight. It's Icons and Influencers Night here at the Not Late SLIF Show. But before we have our guests come up, I did want to talk a little bit about some icons and influencers in our community in a little segment we like to call, Meanwhile, We Ain't Dead Yet. All right, meanwhile, a group of seniors at a retirement home in the UK decided to get tattoos. One chose a butterfly, another a quote, and one got a slice of pizza. They called it their Ink and Wrinkles Club. Their only rule? No regrets. There we go. Meanwhile, in the wide world of retirement community fundraising, a senior living community in Ohio created a Hunks of Assisted Living calendar to fundraise for new furniture in the community featuring shirtless seniors posing with props. Mr. July was most noted wearing nothing but a strategically placed beach ball. While the calendar raised over $20,000 for new recliners, unfortunately half of that had to be rerouted for therapy for the local employees there. Meanwhile, at a senior living community in Arizona, a heated game of bingo turned into a full-on Nerf gun battle. No major injuries were reported and no incident reports were needed, but Doris from apartment 3C is now known as Deadeye Dot, landing her a future role in the Marvel Universe. Way to go, Dot. Way to go, Dot. There's some AI in there, eh? All right, meanwhile, speaking of bingo antics, in West Babylon, New York, a community claims they accidentally hired a male stripper for bingo night. While the community reported its highest attendance ever for a single activity, one resident was overheard saying, "That's the most action I've had since Studio 54. But following the event, the business office had the wonderful experience of explaining to their children why their mom's trust fund had been completely emptied. And finally, meanwhile, our last story comes from the Great Wall of China. It's actually quite amazing. A 90-year-old woman strapped on her sneakers and hiked the entire Great Wall. Once making it to the top, she took in the view and calmly said, "Is that it?" She pulled out a granola bar, passed a group of wheezing college kids, and made it home for dinner. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Meanwhile, We Ain't Dead Yet. Thank you very much. We have a wonderful show for you tonight. We are going to take just a break in a moment. We'll be right back with our guests.
This commercial is sponsored by the Influence Group.
Marty, are you there? Listen to me, this is important. There's a gateway opening into the future. The year is 2025. This isn't just any gathering, Marty, this is SLIV. It's where senior living's future is being written. AI, innovation, all of it, it's getting spilled. These people aren't just talking about what's next, they're building it, and you need to be there. This is your shot to get ahead of what's coming. So write this down, SLIF, October 26th to 28th, Huntington Beach, be there.
Alrighty, thank you for joining us here at the second episode of the Not Late SLIF Show, Icons and Influencers. Our first guest is a visionary in senior living who turned big ideas into reality as the founder of Erickson Living, creating communities that have given tens of thousands of residents an opportunity to age with purpose. Please welcome to the stage Mr. John Erickson. John, how are you?
Thank you.
It's great
Thank you, Murry.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
I'm so curious, do you know actually, or have a roundabout estimate on the total number of residents that have ever lived in an Erickson community?
Well, it's got to be up in the 75,000 range by now.
That's a lot of lives.
Yes, it's a lot of
You
lives.
should feel really proud of that.
Well, I am, and it also involves all the family members and the staff members that go with that. So.
Absolutely. How many of those residents did Matt Paxson from Hoarders move in?
I have no idea.
Not sure, but you talked to him last night, right?
That's right. I talked to him last night. He definitely said that his business lived off of a lot of those Erickson homes and people emptying and the rest. And he told me also that his mother moved in to an Erickson community in Richmond, Virginia.
That's amazing.
So that's a good testament.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so getting into it, you got started super early in the senior living industry. Can you share your origin story? Because it goes back well into the 70s.
Well, yeah, it actually started in the 70s. I was doing tax shelter financing work and ended up with a bunch of manufactured housing communities in Florida that were targeting the middle income market. People coming down from New Jersey and New York and places like that, getting early retirement in Florida. They were built around golf courses and clubhouse communities. And I noticed that how easily people connected and socialized in what an engaging life they had. And so this thought occurred to me that, you know, for every one of those people that came to Florida, 20 stayed home for the right reasons, families, churches, you know, Sunday dinners, you name it. But the place to build retirement, if you wanted to be at the main market, would be back in the main cities of the Northeast. And so that thought was in my mind, and I can't tell you the whole story because it would take an hour and a half, so I'll give you the Cliff Notes. But I came across this abandoned college seminary on a hill with 110 acres built around the turn of the century. And I decided that would be the place you could test this social idea. And so the good thing about it, I had no experience or knowledge or anything about the senior housing industry.
Sure.
And that was really good because I didn't have to follow any rules. Yeah. And so the first thing I did, I changed two quick rules. I changed instead of an endowment fee to come in, I said middle America wants a 100% refundable entrance fee. And if the residents will put up the money for the unit, all I have to do is finance the cost to build it, and then I can give them their money back when they leave or die. So I started that in 1983. I got in a lot of trouble with the industry for that because they hated me. They didn't want to go to non-refundable fees when they were all taking $250,000 and not giving it back.
Yeah.
So the other change was that the monthly fee was going to be on a fee for service, just enough costs to cover meals, taxes, utilities, transportation, the basic services of the community. And people would pay extra for the services they use beyond that. And so that gave me an entry into almost anybody that owned a home and had Social Security income. They could get into our community. And that was by far the biggest share of the whole senior market. And it took it down from the top 10% way into the 40, down to the 40 percentile level of people that are living in America. So those were the big changes, and that's a little bit of how we started.
And that was pretty much through the 80s, correct?
All through the 80s.
Yeah. So you even with that deposit kind of model, you focused heavily on serving the middle class. And can you walk through kind of why that was such a big part of the mission, and you can talk about how that evolved over time?
So that was the group that I experienced in South Florida when I was doing my housing. It was people that had worked hard, retired at an early age. Many of them were from industrial work and factories in plumbing and the rest, and they just wanted to have this leisure lifestyle after that. And so my goal was to say, how do we get senior housing not to this upper middle income market, but down into the mainline middle income America? So it was a mission of mine, and I said, well, we got to get to the school teachers and to the pharmacy guy or somebody that did this or that, and if we could do that, the market share is going to be 20 times the size of anything that we had experienced up to that point. Now, I didn't have any idea about building large communities then. I was just trying to survive the first community, and if I could get to a break-even point and it didn't fail, that was going to be success. That was my standard.
Sure.
And so at about the first 150 or almost 200 units, we reached that break-even point, and that's when the idea of what do you do next occurred. And I can remember the people in the industry said, don't ever build more than 300 units. And I said, why is that? Well, because it'll be like an atomic reactor, all those old people together, it'll be out of control. No one would ever want to live there again. After there was 300 of them, you wouldn't want any more than that. That was the attitude of the industry at the time. Fortunately, I was greedy and didn't do that because I wasn't going to start over and build a new community building and all new services and new dining rooms and go back in debt. So I just kept adding on. And it was sort of like, using the church on Easter Sunday. It's overcrowded, but we'll get through this and then we'll get to the next phase.
That's amazing.
And that's when I decided you could build a mega community. And we kept building, and the more we built, two things happened. Sales volume went up, and the other thing was that the community activities became exponentially larger in terms of clubs and activities.
Now, during the 80s, was there any correlation between the political and economical situation you were in then as what we're kind of experiencing now?
Well, fortunately, I started when there was very little political involvement. The regulatory environment was mostly file a declaration form and you can do what you want. But as soon as we went with the non-refundable entrance deposit, the market got mad because I was now giving everybody their money back and they weren't. Mm-hmm. So then they started filing more regulations to see if they could set it more towards their advantage instead of mine.
I see.
But through the years, yes, it's gone full circle to where it's highly regulated and it becomes almost a regulatory gridlock. And if you add the political side with the NIMBY side, the not in my backyard side, mm-hmm. It's really difficult to develop today.
That's very interesting. And how about on the lender side? I know my parents told me about the interest rates on housing back in the 80s. How did you find lenders that were willing to partner with you over such a long venture for return?
Well, so that was one of the things that almost created a disaster. I opened the community on December the 23rd, 1983. And that was in the days of Jimmy Carter's interest rates. And the mortgage rate at the time was 16.5%. Oof. And I thought, well, here I had this brilliant idea and I got to this point and nobody's going to be able to move.
Yeah.
How can you move it if the mortgage rates are 16.5%? I was shocked. Everybody moved. They didn't care. And they looked at it that it was, whatever it is, it's my time of life to make the next change. And they made the next change. And so that fascinated me that we could still make this work in spite of that economic, pressure. So that was really a good move. I only borrowed $5 million to start to do one building of 65 units. And they all moved in and I paid the bank down. And so I said, how about giving me $11 million? Mm-hmm. And they do the next couple buildings. They did. And I said, how about giving me $16 million? And they said, well, okay, we'll give $16 million. And when it was over with, it was about $2.4 billion worth of work. So that's, but it took, 30 years to build those capital markets to that point. So it was a lot of hard work.
Do you think there's opportunity today to get in that type of long relationship with lending partners? And if so, how do we do it?
So financial markets follow volume. It's kind of a herd mentality. If a whole lot of people are doing something, they'll go there. And that's why sometimes it shifts where there's a lot of people doing assisted living, mm-hmm. they'll run to assisted living. A lot of people doing memory care. If we got a little broader in what we were doing, the capital markets will go there and they will follow the volume. And if we do it successfully, they'll let that build. And I think that's really what we got to concentrate on if we're going to ever begin to serve the mass market.
So speaking of that kind of broadening of our service delivery, you were a pioneer in what wasn't even called value-based care at the time with the Erickson Advantage program. Can you talk about why you were originally why you were drawn to that investment and why it mattered so much?
Well, most of doing this is, since I had no license and I'm not really qualified to do any of this, was standing in the hallway talking to residents and finding out what their problems were and what they needed.
I love that.
And so you found out these people had to wait 2 and 3 weeks for doctor's appointments. Most of them were being cared for by subspecialists, not by primary care doctors. Mm-hmm. So the last subspecialist they saw was partially coordinating some of their health care. And it just wasn't right. They can't get good at quality health care. So I went over to Hopkins and spoke with their head of geriatric services, Dr. Burton. And we talked about it. He said, oh, you could do it. You could bring in a doctor, but it's going to cost you a lot of money because the government doesn't reimburse that. I didn't really believe him. And I said, well, he said, you can interview with all my doctors and pick one. So I did. I picked this really bright doctor that he had on his staff. And he came over and joined me. And he was right. It did cost a lot of money. But it was the right thing to do. And by that time, the community was large enough. It was sort of like a mini kingdom. And I could just allocate money the way I wanted to. Nobody knew how much money was allocated to healthcare versus dining. And so I could just manage it the way I wanted. And I said, well, this is better for the kingdom.
Yeah.
And so that's how I put it together. And then it grew and it grew. And then I realized we had way better outcomes because we had real medical practice.
Yeah.
And we did it all electronic medical records way before anybody did all that. We had digital data. So then I went to Medicare and said, why don't you give me my own health plan? And they sort of laughed at me, you know. Actually, the head of Medicare said, I think it's a great idea, but the administrative staff said there's no way we'd ever give you a plan. And so this went on for about 5 years, and I kept sending them data and showed them how good our results were. And then one day, Tom Scully, the head of Medicare, calls me and he said, John, I have got something good to tell you about. I'm going to let you have your healthcare plan. You can put a demonstration together for the next 3 years because we need your database on digital disease.
Data.
And if we share our data, your database, we'll let you have a health plan.
And this was 2004?
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe even a little earlier than that.
Yeah.
I can't remember how far back. But then I said, well, that would be great. And he said, well, here's the bad news. This is the last thing I'm doing. I'm leaving office as the head of Medicare tonight at 7 o'clock, and it's 6:59.
All right, there you go. The luck is on your side. Well, it would be amiss if I didn't say that you personally and the Erickson company started my journey in senior living when I walked into Charlestown in the year 2000 and straight up to Craig Erickson's office to replace his computer. But what I saw there was absolutely vibrant and wild. I have one more question for you, but we're going to keep you up here as we bring Lynne Katzmann up soon. The senior living industry is relatively young when you look at it in its entirety, and a lot of organizations are still run by their founders. What do we need to be prepared? What would you say to the people leading those organizations that they should be doing now to prepare for their future transition, even if it's still a ways out?
Yeah, that's a big issue, is how do you create an exit when you're a founder of your own company? The company becomes chemically dependent upon you, and it's really hard for founders to let go very easily. You want to stay, well, I could do it just a little bit more here, a little bit more there. But finding a good exit or an opportunity to move it into the next dimension is really a hard and tough thing to do. And I wouldn't recommend it doing it the way I did. I had to go through a bankruptcy to do that when the capital markets collapsed in 2009. That was painful, and it's not the most elegant way to get out of your business.
Yeah.
But sometimes it did work, and it went to a very safe spot that I had kind of preconditioned it for, and it saved the whole culture and image of the company. So I got through the transition really well, but it could have been a much better and more thoughtfully planned environment. So I would tell people, really concentrate on that early. Don't wait till the end, and use outside advisors and, as they talked this morning, people of wisdom. I put together a board of directors to help get through that process, but I just didn't have the timing with the collapse of the capital market.
Well, thank you very much, John. You've helped so many people through your life. You are certainly an icon and influencer, and that means you have to be immortalized in pop culture. So we've made you your very own Pop John Erickson with a construction hat and a computer. The guy's been collecting data before computers existed. I do want to invite our next guest up to the stage. She is just as much a trailblazer in our industry, a champion of wellness, a powerhouse behind Juniper Communities. She has a PhD in economics and an unmatched energy for changing our options for aging. Please welcome to the stage, Miss Lynne Katzmann.
You're one of one.
One of one. That is one of one. That'll be cool for the grandkids.
Wait a second. You got to look right at these things.
Okay,
right?
yeah, get situated.
Is my jacket okay?
It's all about how we look. It's show business,
How's
baby.
the cleavage? No. Sorry. And am I sitting up straight? Yeah. Okay.
Yes. What are the most significant changes you've witnessed across your career in senior living?
Okay, so I'm in my prime, 35 to 70. I'm still in my prime. I'm
right.
almost out of it, but I'm still in it. But I go back a ways. So Medicare and Medicaid came in, and that really legitimized senior living or long-term care. That was the base of funding for what happened across the country. So that's number one. This is very embarrassing. I'm speaking too much.
Take your time. We can take a second, too. This is the beauty of taped television. We can edit this shit out on a dime.
But you know how excited I am.
And we can bleep
That's
the
why
curse
I'm
words.
wheezing away at you.
I know.
So the advent of assisted living in the 90s, I think was really different. Think about it. When nursing homes came into being, they were step-down units for hospitals.
Yep.
Nobody intended for people to live there long-term. But there was no place for a lot of people to go and no money source, so they ended up living there. So then came assisted living, locked doors, kitchenettes, your own bathrooms.
Oh my goodness.
Just imagine that.
Magic.
So an institutional life went to home, and now we're really talking about homes in communities. And so I think that's huge.
Yeah.
2010 passage of the ACA, huge change. It flipped the paradigm of healthcare in the US. And while that hasn't had as much impact on senior living as it will in the future, it's hugely important. Last thing, I'm not done, Mary.
No, please keep going. I plan.
I'm going to wheeze at you for the next 5 minutes.
That's actually the only question I'm asking for the whole segment.
Public health. So we went from public health killers to chronic illness being the number one killer. That, my friends, I think is the most significant change that I will see in my career. Think about it. We're going from intervention, medical intervention, to prevention. We're going from illness to health. And we're going from reactive medicine to proactive well-being. That is hugely important. So that's my four-pronged answer to your question.
I love it. Absolutely.
Bob told me I had to speak
Four.
numbers.
I'm a 3 guy.
Yeah.
But no, and on Bob Kramer's point, WellCare. I love it. I mean, if you've ever seen me talk, it's common for me to say we're in the most unique position in the healthcare continuum because we truly protect the front door health and wellness of people before they even go into the system to get the treatment and go through that process. And taking more accountability for that is awesome. What are the biggest blockers overall to the overall advancement in senior living?
Fear. Fear, fear, fear. Our own fear of aging, our own fear of our mortality. You know, I faced my mortality last year. And it was a really interesting experience. As I sit before you today, wheezing away, I'm thrilled to be alive. I am no longer fearful of any of that stuff. I beat it. Will I beat it again? I don't know. A cat has, 9 lives?
I think you got 12.
Maybe 5. But anyway, that's one thing. Fear. Ageism is the second.
Big time.
And the third, I call the ostrich syndrome. So what's an ostrich syndrome? We put our heads in the sand. We pretend the reality isn't here. We pretend that disruption isn't going to happen. We keep on going on. Business as usual. You know, John, you mentioned regulation. Regulation is the bane of so many of our existences. It keeps us stuck in where we are. But it's also an excuse for not changing. So, ostrich syndrome. Yeah. I think we got to get out of that.
Absolutely. I can't remember the report I saw, but it was like 250 more years before ageism is out of our society. I'd really like to see that accelerate. Iteration over innovation.
Yeah.
I thought that was a very interesting point.
Yep.
And we iterate. We iterate, we iterate, we iterate. And I can't remember if it was Bob that said it years ago. I can't remember who said it, but they were like, somebody's going to innovate us just out of existence, and something else is going to come along and replace us.
I think that's true.
Yeah.
I think that's true if we don't get out of our own way.
Yeah, and one of the big innovations that you are fully harnessing is with value-based care. And I did not know this until our pre-interview right before the show, but Lynne, you created your first value-based care program in 1983. Sorry, John, she's got you beat.
Sorry.
In Puerto Rico. Can you talk just for a second about that?
Yeah. So, value-based care it's in its second life, not its first life. Many of us don't remember the earlier days of value-based care. But there was a guy by the name of Alan Enthoven. Do you remember him?
Yes.
I believe he was at Stanford. And he talked about fair market, not free market, for healthcare. And he put together health plans. Anyway, I got together with this really innovative guy from Baxter Travenol. And we went to Puerto Rico. Baxter Travenol was the largest employer on Puerto Rico.
Sure.
And we bought into a PPO, and we built that up. Now, I had done Medicare demonstration projects beforehand, so I knew a little bit about this stuff, about health plans and all of that. And today, that plan is still around. Unfortunately, I don't own any of it, but it has 40,000 members. It's the largest plan on Puerto Rico.
That's incredible.
So that was really cool.
And so did that trampoline you into?
No.
No, it did not?
No.
Okay.
No,
Walk
I
us
forgot
through.
all about that.
Oh, you forgot all about it?
Puerto Rico was a really great place for me to be. I loved it. And then I moved on. Mm-hmm. Moved on to Juniper.
Sure.
And all I can think about was skilled nursing, capital sources, AL, construction, dam regulators, and who knows what else. Mm-hmm. So that was out of my mind until
Connect Your Life.
Until 2010. So, for me, I know not everybody likes the Affordable Care Act, but if you're a nerd, and where's George? Is George in the George Netcher? He's
preparing for his talk show.
He's doing the nerd panel. I'm really a nerd. I should be in the nerd panel. The Affordable Care Act, thousands of pages. You read through it. What was really interesting in it wasn't that everyone had to have health insurance. It wasn't that they were taking away choice. It was a small thing called care transitions. It was what happens when you leave one place of care to another, because that's when everything seems to fall apart.
Yeah, transitions, for sure.
Transitions of care. So then 2013 comes along, and how many of you read Health Affairs or read Health Affairs? Thank you, Bob. You're another nerd. There's no other readers of Health Affairs. Okay, so there's some really good health policy nerd journals that you should all read. Health Affairs is one of them. Anyway, a woman by the name of Susan Dentzer worked at Health Affairs, and I loved her writing. She worked for NPR. She was just this really cool woman. And someone called me up and said, will you sit on a panel? In those days, I didn't do many panels. And I said, so tell me about it. They said, well, it's with Susan Dentzer. And I said, yes. Then I said, what's it on? And they said, care transitions. And I said, well, I don't know what care transitions is, but I'm going to find out. And I did some homework. And what I realized is that we in senior living do care transitions. It's a basic part of who we are. It's a core competency.
Yep.
It's always been part of our core competency.
Absolutely.
So I get up there, I talk about care transitions, and like most stuff in Juniper, I went back to my team and I said, we got to do this stuff. Now, Murry, you may know this. We, like John, collected data early on.
Yes, you did.
And one of the other things the Affordable Care Act said is it tried to get skilled nursing communities to have EHRs by, 2012?
Yeah.
And at Juniper, we said, well, you can't do that overnight, so we're going to do it early. And by the way, if they do it for skilled, they're going to do it for AL.
Right.
So we said, okay, we're doing it there. So then we were looking for a platform which was not just an individual piece of software, but that integrated. So integrated with a CRM, integrated with billing, with our GL platform, the whole bit. And we found one. There were a couple at the time. Murry happens to work for the company that we worked with.
I moonlight there.
Yeah, occasionally we do. Occasionally at my buildings.
Yeah.
Anyway, what we had data. So that data plus this understanding of a core competency of care transitions enabled us to say, oh, when someone goes to a hospital or to a doctor, we push a button, up comes their MAR, up comes their face sheet, up comes whatever recent tests we need to get together. And we printed it, we put it in this nice little green plastic folder, your health information from Juniper. And we send people out with it. And we became the hottest game in town. Everybody wanted our data. Everybody loved us. And so we went from there, we said, well, if we're gonna provide this information, maybe we need to have some of these providers be part of this. So we extended it to primary care, rehab, and pharmacy. And they were all part of our preferred provider network, and that became Connect for Life. So what we found in Connect for Life is that just like you, people weren't going to the hospital. They didn't need to, inappropriately that is. They weren't using the emergency department as much. And they weren't being readmitted as often. And we had Ann Tomlinson figure out what that was worth. I just want the drum roll. She said it was a ton of money. It was somewhere between 10 and $15 billion a year.
Yep.
That's not a lot of money for Medicare. It's about 1% at the time, but it was huge. And we realized, why the hell was the government getting that money? We needed that money. And so we did what John did. We went and we said, let's be an insurance company, because the only way you get that money is if you control the healthcare dollar.
And that led you into the Perennial
And that's what started Perennial. So that's a long-winded story.
No, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. Do you think we at Senior Living should be more proactive in engaging with CMS, much like John did back in the early days? Can we do that? Can we band together and do that?
I don't know. That's a better question for John than it is for me.
I think absolutely we should be doing that. Dr. Mehmet Oz, who's now the head of the CMS, is very proactive in senior care and the rest, and he would be a great leader. I don't know that you can get through their administrative side. The administration of CMS believes that they're really not there for healthcare. They believe they're there for the equal distribution of healthcare dollars. And so their objection was that we were too middle income oriented and we didn't cover the whole spectrum. And so their bias would be that this industry's a little bit upper income oriented and we're giving all the money to the wrong group. And so that would be the objection. But if you've got a good leader and people are looking the other way, and our plan's been in effect now for 20 years almost, and so there's precedent. So I think this would be a great time for the industry to come in and say, let's put together our own advantage plan. Instead of going by county, let's go by community. And we could probably get something like that put together.
Yeah, I think there's a real compelling reason for the government to do it now. It saves money. It's better care. It's the triple aim.
Yeah.
You know, people are happier. It's convenient for them.
Less costs.
Yeah, it's streamlined, lower
Yep.
costs, all of those things. So I think it's a compelling reason. But the thing I want to point out is it's not just any health plan. Being an operator, you know what your residents need. To John's point, we talk to people every day. We know what they need. We know what their healthcare needs are. We know that we provide 24/7 monitoring. We have the systems in place to intervene early in a changing condition. And that's what managing chronic illness is all about. So we are the base. And you know what? I think the government is beginning to understand that when you do that in a collective environment, you can do it more cheaply and you can do it more effectively. And so I think we're at a very important inflection point. I think there's a great desire to move more people into value-based care. But I ask you, I implore you, I plead with you, I beg of you, I'll get down on my knees. Please, we need to control our own destiny. Don't let someone else have the seat at the table. Join and operate on plan. You don't have to put up $1 zillion. You don't even have to go at risk in all of them. But you do have to have a voice, because no one knows better than us what our residents and our communities need. This is a new revenue source. It is a way that we can continue to do the good work that you did with middle market folks.
Right, the insurers know the minute you move into a retirement community, the fact that you're not cleaning gutters or shoveling snow, you're having a good meal every day, you're walking indoors, you're socializing. They know day one, they're going to make a lot of money. And so there's no reason that it can't be shared with us and that we can't be a major player in that formula of wellness.
Well,
Right, but you don't let the Uniteds and the Humanas decide how those dollars are spent. We have to sit at the table. John started it. He's the king. The
king of the castle.
We get you a crown. I don't want a crown. I don't want to be your queen, John, but
I don't need the crown, but
anyway.
it was hard. It's the only private Medicare plan that was ever approved, and we couldn't get it approved through Medicare. Even after the 5 years, they turned us down and said they were closing the plan, and we had to go to the Affordable Care Act and add a line that the Erickson Health Plan will survive as its own plan in 2011, and that was the only way we could make the plan permanent, and that was even an accident that we got it through, because
happy accident.
Medicare, a happy accident.
Yeah.
Medicare was going to block it if they could, but it turns out for a technical reason they couldn't block it.
Well, let's hope for more technical
And I won
reasons.
just on a technicality.
There you go. I love technicalities. Well, it's a wonderful battle cry. I would follow either of you into that battle anytime.
Good.
So thank you for joining us, Lynn. Do you have the energy for a quick lightning round? First thing that comes to mind?
Of course.
Okay. One innovation that will change aging forever.
Precision medicine, based on data.
Awesome. What's one trend we need to stop hyping?
Non-evidence-based biohacking.
Ooh. If you could team up with anyone ever to reinvent senior care, who is it?
John Erickson.
Hey, good call. And I think we'll leave it there. That's a great answer, Lynn. You have been immortalized with the red hair that I met you with.
Yeah, that's my old hair.
I love it.
Okay,
Thank you so much. I'm officially your dead again.
Thank you.
Our last guest tonight is an influencer and icon in a different area of the art world. This person helped turn a wild idea into one of the most mind-bending, immersive art experiences on the planet. He's an artist, an entrepreneur, and the creative force behind Meow Wolf. Please welcome Vince Kadlubek. Vince, how are you? Thanks for joining us.
Good.
Good.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I was super excited. I had actually never been to Meow Wolf, but all my friends had. I'm in the music scene, and just hadn't had a chance to get there. But I was curious because I was trying to explain to them what Meow Wolf was, and I'm curious how you do it. When nobody's been there, they haven't seen it, what is Meow Wolf?
Well, first off, what am I doing here?
What aren't you doing
I'm
here?
sitting in the back listening to them talk about like their careers and like the level of knowledge and the level of depth to like the topic that this conference is all about, and then I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? Like, what? I'm like the comic relief. I'm like I'm the stand-up comedian that they do, at the end of late night shows that they bring on that like nobody's awake to even watch. So, all right, how is Meow Wolf described? The way to describe it as like for the masses is an immersive storytelling experience.
Great.
But, that's kind of lame. To me, Meow Wolf it's not even really a business. Like the form that it's in right now is a business, but the energy of Meow Wolf started before we were a business. It's really a movement that says that thinking outside the box, that creative thinking, that being in touch with the creator in you and creation as a whole, that's where possibility exists. And to do that, you have to move yourself outside of the context of the known and be courageous enough to exist within the context of the unknown. in your own life, in your own psychology, and also in your industry and in your family and in your relationships and in the company that you started. And we provide a space for people to exist in an unknown context.
That's exactly why you're sitting on this couch on this stage right here.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, clap if you've been to Meow Wolf.
Nice.
That's pretty solid, but if you haven't, how about we show them?
Whoever created it, I mean, were they on drugs? I thought Meow Wolf was the most unusual place I have ever been to. An incredible team effort between the architects, the builders, and the creators, the artistic ones. I had heard from a lot of people that it was a crazy place.
Bringing the residents to Meow Wolf today, I think, has shown that there's still an opportunity to stay engaged with life, to really experience life. And I'm really thankful for that opportunity with our residents. My name is Murry Mercier, and this has been the Not Late SLIF Show at Meow Wolf. Have you ever had seniors, like a group like that, go through and the exhibit?
You know, honestly, like, we get a really amazing wide range of people going through the exhibit.
Yeah, sure.
You know, kids treat it like a playground, and that's awesome. We welcome that, you know. And that's one of the things that we're proud of with Meow Wolf, is that it's undefinable. It's not trying to fit into any single category.
Sure.
And that there's layers of experience that people can have depending on where they're at in life.
Yeah, and I want to dig in on that, because when I got into senior living, or my first nursing home visit was in 1982, I was like, this could be way different, and I wanted to like completely shock the industry. You talk about focusing on creating an experience that's way outside of the traditional art scene. What were those characteristics you were trying to leave behind? Was there a list of them? Did you just have like a list on a dartboard?
Oh yeah, from the art?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Just this like snobby elitism, the level of sort of cerebral intellectualism that is needed to experience quote unquote art, the not touching the art.
Yeah. I was all over it.
The like the sort of like, I guess it's sort of what is it? It's like it's some kind of, you know, it's some kind of like classist. There's definitely classism, in a big way, and then there's also like kids aren't welcome, like play isn't welcome, fun's not really welcome in art. Like you can really only have fun or be playful in the world of art if it's done in sort of like a tongue-in-cheek way that's also simultaneously smart. So yeah, it was just, you know, we believe that like everybody wants to experience the imagination. Yeah. No matter your age, no matter your background, no matter your level of education, no matter your, socioeconomic status, that everybody wants the imagination, everybody wants creativity in their lives. But it's been gatekept. Yeah. It's been sort of co-opted and gatekept by an elite class, really just for like this weird like tax write-off loophole thing. Largely.
There you go. You talked a lot when we were preparing to go about like self-actualization and finding your own path and like having your experience. Why is that so important? And how do you curate that? Because we kind of deal with it similarly, where we have to build a community for the mass, but we want everybody to come in and enjoy their own experience. Yeah. So how do you facilitate that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, a big thing for us at Meow Wolf is that we don't, you know, there's not a path that you have to take. There's not a thing that you necessarily have to do. Mm-hmm. Core to a Meow Wolf experience is agency. And that with agency, you know, I can go left, I can go right, I can go through that door, I can just sit on this couch, I can try to figure out the story, I can try to solve some of the puzzles. I can do whatever I want in that space. And with that agency, people then do a very basic but profound thing, which is explore. Yeah. And then with exploration is discovery. Yeah. And it seems like that's not a very big thing. Like that's not a very like profound thing.
Well, it seems like pathways of thought almost, like opening up new pathways of thought, but go on.
Yeah, for adults, as we get older and older in our lives, exploration and discovery becomes harder and harder to come by.
Very true.
And so, and it goes back to that thing. It's like exploration and discovery can really only happen within the context of the unknown. That if you know it, then you already know it. There's nothing to explore and discover within a context that you already know. And it's harder and harder to step into that unknown space the older you get.
Sure. So. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Can senior living learn anything from how you curate the exhibits? Do you change up the exhibits? Like, how does that work? How stationary is everything?
Yeah. We change that a little bit, like 10%, maybe 5-10% every couple years or so. We'll change out.
Can senior living learn anything from the way you curate that experience so that we can get people in our communities to say, I've never seen that before?
Yeah, there's so much. Definitely in the realm of like art and multimedia art and sound and light. I feel like there's like so much opportunity there to create, really lovely and even borderline sort of transformative experiences using sound and light.
Yeah.
We oftentimes are. We like to call ourselves a non-evidence-based biohacking company.
Yeah. Burn.
We would love the evidence though at some point that says.
I'm sure.
That says that like these.
I told you I was a nerd.
Yeah. I do believe that being immersed in an experience that is without reference is powerful for anybody, no matter their age.
In a recent post on LinkedIn, which I absolutely loved, you talked about the bombardment of soulless content hitting our feeds on social media.
Okay, yeah.
Can you talk about this message and why it's so important? Because it hit me hard.
The post was mostly also about AI.
Right.
And how AI is going to even accelerate this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's a basic, in business, it's basic supply and demand. And what's going to happen, what is already happening, what's going to happen with AI is that you're going to have just an infinite amount of content that is produced, a supply that is just basically infinite. And for cost-effective reasons, it's gonna be just sort of cranked out. It's very much like sort of what happened with the fast food industry.
Yeah.
Everybody got really excited. Oh my gosh, we can make all this food for a fraction of the cost, and we can do it at mass scale. And and similar to fast food, it's like I think over time we'll be like, oh wow, yeah, this is also like unhealthy. Like to actually ingest this is unhealthy. And we'll start to learn that there's a taste to stuff that is organically made and farm raised and all this. But even more important, I'd say that like the world of entertainment, television, film, even video games, anything that's digital, is going to become there's not going to be any novelty to it. Once AI gets a hold of it, it's going to lose all its novelty.
Yeah.
And so then, I oftentimes have been saying, I've been speaking on some AI panels. It's like, to me, it's not about what AI can do for me. It's actually what can AI not do? Because what AI cannot do is actually the thing that is now going to have a ton of value, because that's where novelty is going to exist in the world of content. And luckily, like experiences are really going to be physical IRL experiences are going to be really tough for AI to ever grab a hold of.
Sure.
And so that's where I'm grateful that Meow Wolf is in that space, and I think everybody in this room being in senior living spaces is in that space as well, of creating experiences that, something like an algorithm can't do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You've shown that immersive design can transform a person's mood instantly. That actually happened for several of the residents that traveled with me into Meow Wolf. Do you have any design shifts you could recommend for us to take home tomorrow to kind of shift the joy in the community or give the opportunity for that mood shift?
I mean, everybody loves secret passageways.
Oh yeah. There's a whole business for that now. There's like carpenters out there that just make a living, make bookshelves open.
Totally, yeah. Secret passageways are really fun. Moving your body in slightly unnatural ways is always nice. Like if you have to sort of like shimmy around, or moving from small spaces into larger spaces and back into small spaces is nice. Nice little, here's the thing, kids love building forts, but I think we actually all love being inside of forts.
Yeah.
So like, just because we grew up doesn't mean we shouldn't still have forts.
No, I absolutely agree.
Get some some bed sheets and Christmas lights and make forts and pillows and
Well, I do think, would you be open to doing some collaborations with some communities, building some Meow Wolf rooms in some of these senior living spaces?
that would be amazing.
You heard it from Vince.
Yeah.
I did have one more curiosity for you.
Sure.
You speak openly about the challenge of focusing on art and running a business.
Yeah.
Have you found anything helpful in attempting to find balance across those efforts? Anything we can learn from there?
The Venn diagram of it all is knowing your audience. I mean, really, it's like when you're, whether we're making art or we're running a business, if we are considering who we are making art or running a business for, and they are the top priority, and we're putting ourselves in their shoes. Who's our audience and why are they here? And making from that place, from a place of service and compassion, I guess, in a way. Then it's going to be a successful business, and the art's going to be enjoyed.
Yeah, I'll go back to what John said early on. Like, if solving problems, go stand shoulder to shoulder with the people you want to solve problems for, and you'll figure it out.
Yeah. That's it.
That's great.
Yep.
Well, Vince, thank you so much for opening up the doors to Meow Wolf. You two are immortalized in pop culture.
Nice.
Thank you so much for being a guest, ladies and gentlemen. This has been the Not Late SLIF Show. Icons. Yep. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you all so much.